Hello, my name is Quentin Gooden, and I own this 1991 Mazda MX-5 Miata, which is full of leaves. Now, a lot of people really want Miatas as their first car or as their only car. So today I'm going to show you what it's like to daily drive this and answer the ultimate question. Can you daily drive a Mazda MX-5? So I've been driving this car every day for about 8 months now, and it's actually been a pretty good car. So the things you have to worry about with these things is that, it's a 30-year-old car. You gotta make sure everything is in good condition. Make sure all your rubbers are good. Make sure your radiator is good. I actually just replaced mine like a couple of weeks ago. And this car drives very well. You also have to worry about winter. Like, is it going to get cold, cool, and warm in the winter? But in my case, it actually does, even with the back window still out. I gotta get a new top for this thing. So, let's go ahead and get ready to start. Now, there's some things I need to clean on this thing, so I pumped the gas a little bit whenever I started. It's pretty much raining and falling leaves everywhere, so that's why the car looks like that. Starts right up. Now, another thing to consider when you get an MX-5, especially the first generation when they first came out, is what years you get. When they first came out, they had this engine that was known as a short nose crank and a long nose crank, where the vehicle will have a short nose crankshaft, and if you went to go change the timing belt, you have to be very careful, or you can end up getting crank wobble. But luckily, I have the same engine that we're talking about here, and I'm not getting crank wobble at all. It actually does a good job. But a good thing about MX-5s in general is that it's not an interference engine. So if your timing belt snaps, you won't have to buy a new engine. But that doesn't mean that you can hold off on changing your timing belt. That just means you won't have to buy a new engine if it fails. During the mornings, I like to let it just warm up. It drives a lot better when it's warmed up, especially when it's cool. Well, it ain't extremely cold right now, but it's really a good idea to let it warm up. It definitely drives a lot better if you do. But this car is actually pretty good in the winter too. Now, we don't have snow in Alabama that often, but we do have frigid cold temperatures too. And this car starts up very well in those situations still. Even though it's a car from 1991 with 163,000 miles, it still starts up with no problem. So, if you have to daily drive a car, a Miata like this, you really wouldn't be in a bad condition, really. You really wouldn't be in trouble if you had one in this condition, like one that was taken care of, one that you changed out all the fluids. Just make sure you change out all the fluids and your radiator whenever it gets old and all that. And one good thing about driving an NA MX-5, especially if you have lower miles, is that even after you're done daily driving it, you might not lose any money. These things are actually appreciating in value. When I first bought mine, I bought mine for $1,500, which is actually still pretty cheap for one of these. Right, when I first bought it, most MX-5s are going for around $2,500 in this condition. Now people are selling these things for $3,000 and in much worse condition with more miles and a little bit more wear and tear in the interior. So, if you do end up daily driving one of these things, you won't really have to worry about losing any money, right? So, next time I talk to you guys will be whenever I get ready to go to work, and I'll show you guys what it's like to drive. Okay, the roaster's all warmed up. That means I can go ahead and set out. But first, I have to do literally what's the best thing about these things right here. that. You can pretty much just let the top up and down anytime you want. It's about 50 degrees, and this pretty much be the last time I actually get to let it down in a good bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and let it down. Now these cars are very easy to drive every day. Of course, it's gonna be easier if you have an automatic, but the automatic isn't that bad either. Really, the biggest thing you have to worry about with driving these things is that people won't see you. I'm in the Mazda groups on Facebook, and I hear about them getting into wrecks with other cars a lot because the other cars don't pay attention to them. Freaking Karen in their Ford Expedition gonna T-bone my car if I don't pay attention. Or, you know, people in those lifted trucks, you know, the overcompensators, they might not see you either. But they should be able to hear me at least. Because this is not the quietest car at all. Another thing you have to worry about with these things is speed. These things are slow. So if you're going to go on the highway, you need to be full throttle. I mean full throttle. Another thing about daily driving these things, I've gotten used to it, so it ain't bad to me. But for someone who's probably been driving bigger cars, especially when you got into a luxury car, this car is going to be very uncomfortable compared to those cars. I mean, very uncomfortable. This thing's low to the ground. Pretty much the only cars that are really low are like expensive sports cars and supercars, really. Like Corvette, Vipers, and Lamborghinis and all that. It's pretty much the only cars that are going to be lower. They're all bigger, but they're all lower though. These things are pretty good to drive every day. Now another thing too I gotta say about driving one of these too, the gas mileage is not as good as you expect it to be. I mean, yeah, it's gonna be better than some V8 car, but don't expect to be getting around 30 miles per gallon. Especially if you live somewhere where you gotta drive fast. This thing pretty much is gonna be 3,000 RPM whenever you're at highway speeds. Going 70, you're gonna be around 3,500 RPM. Right now I'm at 2.5 RPM on 50. So that's something you really gotta consider, especially if you want to have an exhaust on this thing too. Well guys, I'm going to continue my commute to work, and I'll get right back to you guys after that. Okay, so I made it to work. I work at a Ford dealer. So I made it to work, no problem at all. Still comfortable, not wet. One thing you have to worry about with these things is leg room if you're a very, very tall person. But I'm pretty much average, 5'11". And I fit in this thing pretty well. I have no problem fitting in this thing at all. Even with the top up. The top still has probably about 4 inches of headroom. It's pretty good. And this car even has one great thing, a dead pedal. So when I see you guys next time, we'll be getting groceries at Walmart. Hello guys, I am back. About 10 hours later after work, I am here to show you guys the most important part about commuting with a Miata, the trunk space. Now you guys already know these cars are not known for its trunk space, but it is actually very good when it comes to getting groceries. Now I am a single person, I live by myself, so I pretty much only have to get groceries for myself. It's about $70 in groceries right here. It'll last me the whole week. I even got some cat food in there, a big bag of it, so you guys can, if you guys can tell. The only thing that's annoying about these these first generation MX-5s, the old ones, is that you can't open it from inside the interior. You gotta use the keyhole with the key, and if that messes up, you're screwed. But it actually does a good job. Closed pretty easily, even with all that stuff in there. I wouldn't recommend doing it though if you have a family though. Well, we're gonna go home and I can close out this video. Well then guys, that concludes a nice normal day for me and driving this Mazda MX-5 Miata. I basically showed you guys what is it like to daily drive a Miata, and to answer the question of can you daily drive a Mazda MX-5, the question is yes, if you don't have a family. I wouldn't recommend driving this thing every day, using it for groceries and all that if you have a family, because really there's no space in it. It's got a small trunk, it's only got 2 seats, but luckily I'm never going to have to worry about that. So basically, that's pretty much it. What you really need to do if you are planning on dailying one of these is make sure all your parts are good. Make sure your radiator and all your hoses have been replaced, just like mine have. Make sure your motors work too for your headlights, especially in the winter like it is now. As you can see, I got a new radiator right there. It doesn't leak coolant at all. Yeah, make sure you keep the motors for the headlights working, especially in the winter, because you're going to want to leave them up whenever you get ready to leave, whenever you get ready to go in for the night, so they don't freeze closed, especially if you're going to need to use them. Now, one thing I will say that will actually make this thing a lot better as a daily driver will be a hard top. If you guys have a hard top, you guys will definitely be perfect when it comes to daily driving. Because after that, you don't even have to worry about anything getting in there. It's just basically just like driving a regular coupe, but smaller. Well, I hope you guys I hope you guys enjoyed this little informative video. Actually, to be honest with you, I made it last week with my old camera, but it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work no more because that phone was basically done for. But I was able to get it done with this better camera anyway. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like, share, like, share, and subscribe if you want to see more of this car. And I'll talk to you guys next time.